Hello viewers, and welcome to a massive undertaking of a video project that I had the crazy idea of making. I thought it would be fun to create a ranking of every playable character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate based on their number of video game appearances as of 2024. It was no walk in the park, but I have compiled all the necessary data to create this list. Before we get into it, here are the rules I followed regarding the games I selected. Please bear with me, this is essential information for the video. Rule number 1. This list only covers officially licensed video game releases, not banned games, ROM hacks, unreleased games that never saw official releases, etc. Games that were region exclusive, limited releases, or live service games that were once operational but are now shut down are still counted. If they were official games that once graced this earth at some point in time, no game has been left behind. In the same vein, appearances of characters must be the official versions as well, and not parodies or other similar characters. Rule number 2. Only playable video games that were released on computers, dedicated gaming systems ranging from consoles to handhelds, arcade cabinets, and mobile devices are counted. No web browser or electronic toy-based games are welcome here. Some arcade cabinet games which merely port assets from existing home console games are not counted either. Rule number 3. With games that received multi-platform releases, if the games are near identical on every platform, I will only count them as a singular game. If one or more versions of the same game are drastically different on other platforms, such as having to revamp the gameplay and including impactful additional exclusive content, they are considered. Rule number 4. In terms of re-releases, I decided not to include ports that run on emulation or are mainly unaltered from the original release, and I'm also excluding compilation titles containing largely unaltered ports. The types of re-releases I did work with consist of enhanced or remastered ports that made enough substantial changes to be considered an entirely separate game, such as graphical, gameplay and story changes, or a batch of new additional content, which evidently applies to remakes as well. This also applies to compilation titles which contain new content or new and enhanced versions of games that make their debut in the compilation title in question. And rule number 5. Regarding the rules surrounding characters, only physical appearances that they make are counted. This means non-sentient images, 3D models, sprites, and pixel art are all excluded. Yes, this means characters who only appear as trophies in Smash Bros. Don't count either. I'm also not counting skins and cosmetics that are merely the outfits or just plain model swaps that represent the Smash characters. However, no stone has been left unturned, as I am still counting cameos and Easter eggs in other games if the characters are present or have some bearing on gameplay and the world they are in. Canonicity here is irrelevant. I will elaborate on other factors over the course of the video, bringing them up when their time comes, but these are the overall general rules, and I hope it makes things clear going forward. Finally, disclaimers.
There will be some spoilers for more recently released games, be warned. Games won't always be listed in chronological release order due to the method I use to sort the data, and there's a possibility that an obscure game or two with very little information documented online containing any characters in an official manner may have slipped by me, so in some cases consider the results for characters with decades of history to be approximate, despite how thorough I was. You may also not agree with how I counted some specific game appearances, and I will be making potentially controversial decisions throughout regarding certain complicated characters when we get to them, but I will explain my reasoning.
At the end of the day, this video is purely for entertainment purposes. The subject is already very abstract and rife with complications, but I tried to be as fair and inclusive as possible. I am claiming this ranking to be more or less accurate when factoring in the rules I imposed on myself. Alright, let's get to it already. Mario! You all know where Mr. Video Game himself is going to rank in this list. Mario first appeared in Donkey Kong and made subsequent appearances in the original Donkey Kong game series in various roles, 8 games in total, including the Game & Watch versions. Speaking of the Game & Watch systems, Mario had his own series of games on this handheld line of games, 5 in total. The Game & Watch games would later get remakes on the Game Boy Advance with the Game & Watch Gallery series, which replaced all the original characters with Mario and friends in the roles. There were 4 of these games. Next is the Mario Bros. Series, which consists of 5 games. After that, 3 games in the Wrecking Crew series, 2 games in the Famicom Grand Prix series, and 5 games in the series of golf games on the NES. And now for the mainline Super Mario Bros. Series, including the enhanced ports and remakes that kickstart the Super Mario franchise. 36 games. And I throw in a couple of wacky obscure ones which are still official games. While he is a separate character in Smash, Dr. Mario is still the Mario, so we're including this sub-series too, consisting of 10 games. Moving out of his own games for the moment, Mario appears in 5 games in the Yoshi's Island series and 7 of what I call the miscellaneous Yoshi game series. Everyone's favourite Mario side series, the Mario Discovery series of educational games, has 9 games, 6 of which are differing versions of 2 games. There's 2 Mario Teaches Typing games and 3 games in the Picross series. There are 8 games in the Mario vs Donkey Kong series, but 1 game only features toy versions of the characters, so it's 7 appearances for Mario here. The Mario cast appear in 2 games in Square Enix's Itadaki Street series as well. I'm also including the WarioWare series, which features an array of cameos from Nintendo icons in its various microgames, so expect to see this series come up a lot throughout this video. Mario has appeared in 11 out of the 12 games in this series. Similarly, the NES Remix series has also been counted, with Mario games appearing in all 3 titles, along with the near-identical game Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. Mario is of course in every game in these following spin-off series. Mario has 2 long-running RPG series, the 7-game Paper Mario series and 8-game Mario & Luigi series. All 15 Mario Kart games, which includes the 4 Arcade GP series titles. 19 Mario Party games, including Mario Party E, an obscure Game Boy Advance peripheral game, the 7 Mario Tennis games, 6 Mario Golf games, 3 Mario Strikers games, 2 Mario Baseball games, Mario Hoops 3-on-3, Mario Sports Mix, Mario Sports Superstars, 2 Mario Plus Rabbids games, and all 5 games in the Luigi's Mansion series. There are 10 crossover games with the Sonic the Hedgehog series in the form of the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series. And lastly, Mario is of course in all 6 Super Smash Bros. Games. Yes, I am counting Smash for Wii U and Smash for 3DS as separate games, as this follows the established rules for the video. Now for all the miscellaneous Mario games that don't fit into the sub-series I already listed. Before we finally finish with Mario, here are all his cameo and special appearances in non-Mario games. And there we have it, Mario is in 259 games, putting him at the top of this list, which you all saw coming anyway. No one is topping him, but let's see how everyone else compares against each other, shall we? Donkey Kong! Before we start, I need to clarify one thing first, and this will make Donkey Kong the first potentially controversial character in this ranking. I am fully aware that the Donkey Kong character from the original series of games is not the same tie-wearing ape introduced in Donkey Kong Country that we are all familiar with today. No, the Donkey Kong who antagonized Mario back in the day was confirmed to be the new DK's alleged grandfather Cranky Kong, back in his prime and donning the title, which was later passed down. So how do I go about judging DK's game appearances in this context, especially considering Donkey Kong Jr.'s ambiguous role in all this? Both characters are apes named Donkey Kong, and most official outlets consider the original arcade game to be the debut appearance of the character in general, so I've combined the overall appearances of both versions of the character. Alright, now let's get on with it. In addition to the 8 games which also featured Mario, Donkey Kong appears in 3 other games in the original Donkey Kong series. DK is in 3 of the Game & Watch Gallery titles which contained remakes of some of the original Donkey Kong games, and he makes appearances in NES Open Tournament Golf and a CD-ROM version of Mario is Missing. The new and rebooted Donkey Kong of course makes his landmark debut in the Donkey Kong Country series, comprised of 11 games overall. The first 3 games also received Game Boy ports in the form of the Donkey Kong Land series, but DK is absent in the 3rd game. DK's other main game appearances are Donkey Kong 64, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat and its enhanced Wii port, and the 2 DK titles. Rounding up his own franchise, DK appears in the Donkey Konga trilogy and Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. Modern Donkey Kong appears in the 7 out of 8 Mario vs Donkey Kong games, and Classic Donkey Kong is in 2 NES Remix games and World Championships NES. Both versions of DK appear in 7 of the WarioWare games. A baby version of the character is in Yoshi's Island DS, and he appears alongside a large cast of Mario characters in Dr. Mario World. He also features in the DLC story expansion for Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. This next section on DK's games will set the precedent for when I cover the same games that I've counted already again. In this case, we'll be doing an abridged version of various Mario spin-off titles. Donkey Kong is in every Mario Kart game except these 3, every Mario Party game minus 2, the 2 Itadaki Street Mario crossover games, every Mario and Sonic game bar 2, every other Mario sports title ever made, and the entire Super Smash Bros. Series. Classic DK appears in the first 2 arcade Punch-Out games in the crowd and is elevated to an actual opponent in Punch-Out for Wii. Donkey Kong was made a playable character in Nintendo console versions of 2 of the Skylanders games by scanning his unique figurine, and he appears in these games, giving the King of the Jungle a total of 134 games. As you may already be aware, the character of Link is a different incarnation of the hero of Hyrule in almost every game he appears in. We're counting every single version of Link, even though Young Link and Toon Link exist as separate characters, because at the end of the day, this Link reflects all the different versions and appearances of the character. Link is the main protagonist of every single title in the mainline The Legend of Zelda series, except for the subversive Echoes of Wisdom, which he still appears in regardless. Including the enhanced ports and remakes, there are 29 games in total. There's also a Game & Watch version of the first game. I say Echoes of Wisdom is subversive, but don't think I'm not including the CDI games which gave us a playable Princess Zelda in 2 instances long before that game was made. Nintendo may not acknowledge them in any capacity, but they are still officially licensed Zelda games, and we're counting all 3 of them. Spin-off game Hyrule Warriors has 3 different versions, with the 3DS and Switch ports containing new additional features and elements, so we're counting them all, along with the Breath of the Wild spin-off Warriors game. Link is in all 3 NES Remix games and World Championships NES, and has made 10 appearances in the WarioWare series. He also appears as a guest character in both versions of Mario Kart 8, and is in every Smash Bros. Game. Link appears in 2 Zelda spin-off titles and as a GameCube exclusive playable character in Soul Calibur 2. He makes additional appearances in all these games. The legendary hero has 73 game appearances. Remember to give thanks to the CDI games for the extra 3 games he received.
Samus!
Metroid's protagonist features in 15 mainline games in her series, including the Prime Remaster, 9 games in the WarioWare series, 2 NES Remix games in the World Championships NES Edition, and every Smash Bros. Game. Samus also makes cameos in these games, 40 games in total.
Dark Samus!
Dark Samus first appears in the true ending of Metroid Prime and its remaster, as an arm with an eye in her hand emerging from the decomposing body of the game's final boss. This technically counts as an appearance, despite not being able to see her whole body, so along with Prime 2 and 3 where she shows up in full, that makes 4 games. Dark Samus appears as an assist trophy in Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, before being promoted to a playable character in Ultimate. Overall, that's 7 game appearances for her.
Yoshi!
For Yoshi, we're counting any games that have the species of Yoshis in, as not every game iteration is the same main Yoshi character. While most of the games feature the Yoshi, there are a few where he isn't present, but other green Yoshis are, and sometimes it just isn't clear if it is meant to be our main man or not. At the risk of sounding discriminatory toward Yoshis, they all look identical anyway, so we're counting them all. First appearing as Mario's companion in Super Mario World, Yoshi has appeared in a total of 20 main installments in the Super Mario series. He appears in 8 out of 9 games in the Mario Discovery series, and all 9 games in the miscellaneous Yoshi series, naturally. Yes, Tetris Attack is a Yoshi puzzle game as well. Yoshi would go on to receive his very own platformer series that is comprised of 10 games, consisting of the Yoshi's Island titles and related games. Yoshi appears in all 4 Game & Watch Gallery games, and is in 3 WarioWare games. He's also in Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, but not the sequel, and Dr. Mario World. Yoshi's also appear in 4 Paper Mario games and 6 Mario & Luigi games. And of course, Yoshi appears in every game in the spin-off series Mario Kart, Mario Party, and the crossovers and sports games series. Except Mario Tennis Power Tour for some reason. Yoshi is in every Smash Bros. Game, and he also appears in all these other Mario games, and these non-Mario games, for a total of 146 games for gaming's most famous dinosaur. Kirby was first created by Smash Bros. Series director Masahiro Sakurai and stars in every game in his own highly prominent series except for DDD's Drum Dash Deluxe. That makes 39 games in total. He also features in 2 of the NES Remix games and World Championships NES, and every Super Smash Bros. Game. Other appearances include a cameo in the opening cutscene of the SNES game Arcana, where Kirby is seen amongst a group of evil warriors, which is kind of funny, along with 2 games in however you pronounce this series, and 3 games in the Box Boy series. Kirby is in 54 games. Fox McCloud stars in all 8 games of his own series Star Fox, which includes Star Fox 2, a previously unreleased game that finally got an official release on the SNES Mini. Fox appears in every Super Smash Bros. Game, has a cameo appearance in WarioWare Smooth Moves, and he makes a special guest appearance as a playable character in the Nintendo Switch version of Ubisoft's Starlink, Battle for Atlas, 16 games.
Pikachu!
Pikachu is the first Pokemon character we're covering in this video, so allow me to explain how the Pokemon game series will work for the list. Pokemon is known for generally having 2 different versions of practically the same game in the mainline series, and this applies to some spin-off games too, with both being released at the exact same time, with a few minor differences between the 2. With the first few games in the series, a year or two later would see a release of a third version following the first two initial versions, which are for the most part considered the definitive and most complete versions of the two preceding games. This isn't a Pokemon based video, so I'm not getting into specifics here, but consider every Pokemon game duo and third version to each be counted as individual games, because that is what they are sold as and intended to be. Yes, this gives Pokemon characters a significant advantage for this ranking, but my video, my rules. As the mascot and face of the Pokemon brand, Pikachu is a species that debuted in the first set of Pokemon games, known collectively by fans as Pokemon Generation 1. I am also counting the Japan exclusives Red, Green and Blue, which predate the iconic Red and Blue versions that the rest of the world was introduced to Pokemon through. The Pikachu species has appeared in every subsequent mainline Pokemon entry since, 40 games in total. Moving on swiftly to the side games and spin-off titles now, Pikachu is in almost all of them. Firstly, it's in the 6 Pokemon games that are focused on battling on home consoles with 3D graphics, which includes the Japanese exclusive Pokemon Stadium game that was actually the very first Stadium game that the rest of the world didn't get. There are 11 different games in the Mystery Dungeon series, but Pikachu is absent from 2 of them as it's a version exclusive to one of a trio of WiiWare titles that were only released in Japan. Pikachu is in 2 Snap games, 2 puzzle games, both Troze games and Pokemon Shuffle, all 3 Ranger games, all 5 Rumble games, the Pokepark duology, 5 games in a series of Japanese exclusive arcade games that use AR codes, which we'll call the Puck series. Look it up if you're curious. Pokken Tournament and its enhanced port, Detective Pikachu and its sequel, and all the Smash Bros. Games. This will also be a good time to bring up that I'm not counting the trading card games, and that applies to every other series represented in Smash that has card type games too, because they are not physical character appearances. Pikachu's miscellaneous game appearances include all these. Yes, I am counting this game, which I discovered while gathering up games. It's up there with great racing games like Star Wars Bombad Racing, I'm sure. 105 games for Pokemon's mascot.
Luigi.
Wherever Mario goes, you can guarantee his brother Luigi will be there to follow, despite having missed a few adventures. Luigi debuted in the Game & Watch title Mario Bros. And is in every Game & Watch Gallery game. He joins Mario in all titles in the Mario Bros. And Wrecking Crew series, 3 golfing games on NES, Famicom GP2, 2 Yoshi puzzle games, 6 Mario Discovery games, where he was the main protagonist for the first time in Mario is Missing, and both teaches typing games. Luigi is in every mainline Super Mario game except for these 6, but he does star in his own game that Mario did not appear in at all, New Super Luigi U, totaling to 31 games in the main Super Mario series. Luigi is of course featured in every game in his own series, Luigi's Mansion, and like Mario, is in 5 games in the Yoshi series. He appears in 2 Dr. Mario installments and plays Doctor by himself in his own game, Dr. Luigi, with Mario nowhere to be seen. The Year of Luigi was a thing, if you recall. Luigi further cameos in 6 titles in the WarioWare series and features in all the NES-based challenge games. When it comes to Mario's spin-off titles, Luigi has a perfect attendance record. He is in every single game along with every Smash game. In other spin-offs, he appears in these games with his older brother, as well as these games. Despite always being in his older brother's shadow, Luigi stands tall with 193 game appearances, second only to Mario, naturally. Ness is the main protagonist of Earthbound and makes a cameo in Mother 3. Other than those, him appearing in every Super Smash Bros. Game has given him a slight edge, with 8 game appearances in total.
Captain Falcon.
This will be a good time to bring up the fact that I am counting alternative continuity versions of characters if they share the same name, design traits and characteristics of the original versions. Captain Falcon from the F-Zero anime is a different incarnation of the iconic Blue Falcon pilot, and this anime got 2 tie-in video games starring him, which gives Captain Falcon 5 appearances in his own F-Zero series. Like Ness, he's riding on Smash Bros. To give him a boost on this list, of course appearing in every game in the series. 11 game appearances in total.
Jigglypuff.
The second Pokemon in the Smash roster also debuted in Generation 1 and has appeared in every mainline game except for Legends Arceus. Jigglypuff is in all the 3D battle games, every Mystery Dungeon game except for 1, the first Snap game and Puzzle League, the 3 other puzzle games, 2 Ranger games, every Rumble game, 3 Puck games, makes a cameo in both versions of Pokken Tournament, and as one of the original 12 characters in the first Super Smash Bros. Game, appears in every game in the Smash series. Jigglypuff appears in these spin-offs too, giving it a total of 91 games.
Peach.
Spoiler alert, Princess Peach is already famous for having the most game appearances of any female video game character. Let's run through them. Peach appears in every mainline Super Mario game minus the Super Mario Land games, Super Mario Bros. On Game & Watch, all Game & Watch Gallery titles, NES Open Tournament Golf and Wrecking Crew 98, 4 Mario Discovery games, both Teach's Typing titles, 4 Misc Yoshi games, Yoshi's Island DS, 3 WarioWare games, all the NES Challenge games, and Dr. Mario World and Luigi's Mansion 3. Just like Luigi, Peach appears in every Mario spin-off, karting, party, sports, crossover, and RPG game you can think of. As the first character introduced to the Smash series since Super Smash Bros. Melee in this video, Peach has been in every Smash game since. In addition to appearing in these games along with Mario, Peach most recently starred in her second adventure as the main protagonist, being the sole Mario series character to appear in the game in question, Princess Peach Showtime. As with other Mario characters, she also appears in these games, giving her a total of 169 appearances, and now you know why, like Mario, she won't ever be topped in the female character department.
Daisy!
As Peach's Echo Fire, fellow Princess Daisy debuted in Super Mario Land as the damsel in distress, and it took a couple of decades for her to appear in another mainline Super Mario game, with Super Mario Run and Super Mario Bros. Wonder finally delivering. Yes, like a certain other Mario character who is not playable in Smash Bros., Daisy has been relegated to primarily spin-off title treatment, and this is where most of her appearances lie. Daisy's earliest spin-off appearance was in NES Open Tournament Golf. She appears in every Mario Kart game except these 5. She's in every Mario Party game except these 3 Mario Golf games, both Itadaki Street Mario crossovers, every Mario and Sonic Olympic title, and she's in every single game in the other Mario Sports spin-off titles. Except Mario Tennis Power Tour for some reason. Her other appearances are in Yakuman DS, Dr. Mario World, and of course Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. 63 games for the Princess of Sarasa Land.
Bowser!
The primary antagonist of the Mario series, debuting in Super Mario Bros. Along with Peach. Bowser appears in every mainline Super Mario game except for the Black Sheep Super Mario Bros. 2 and its related games, and the 2 Super Mario Land games. Bowser in primarily his baby form is also the main antagonist to the Yoshis, appearing in all 10 Yoshi games. He's in Super Mario Bros. On Game & Watch, all 4 Game & Watch Gallery games, every Mario Discovery game except for this one from what I can tell, Wrecking Crew 98, 6 Misc Yoshi games, WarioWare Get It Together, all the NES Challenge games, and Dr. Mario World. I'm not counting the final boss of the first Luigi's Mansion, as that was a glorified costume created by King Boo. Bowser appears in every game in all the other Mario spin-off series except for Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. Bowser has been the Super Smash Bros. Mainstay since Melee, appearing as a playable fighter and being given a new Fisher's Smash Bros. Only transformation in the form of Secret Boss Giga Bowser, which has become associated with his subsequent appearances in the Smash series. He further appears alongside the Mario cast in these games I've covered already. Bowser is the only other Nintendo console exclusive playable character alongside Donkey Kong in 2 of the Skylanders games, and he also appears in all of these non-Mario games. 172 games to the King of the Koopas.
Ice Climbers!
Popo and Nana only have one game to their name, Ice Climber, but fortunately for them, the contents of this game have been reused in other games, which comprise of 6 games in the WarioWare series, Tetris DS, and 2 NES Challenge games. The Ice Climbers only appear in 3 Super Smash Bros. Games due to being snubbed in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. 13 games in total, which is still impressive considering they only have one game in their series.
Sheik!
The disguised form of Princess Zelda is in a whopping 2 games in the Legend of Zelda series, but is also a playable character in every version of Hyrule Warriors, appears in Scribblenauts Unlimited, and has been a mainstay of the Smash Bros. Series since Melee. 11 games.
Zelda!
Princess Zelda, the eponymous character of the Legend of Zelda series, is mainly a supporting character and not the main protagonist, so ironically, she's not in as many games as Link. We're of course applying the same rule used for Link here, counting every incarnation. She appears in every mainline Zelda game except all 3 versions of Link's Awakening and Triforce Heroes. Yes, she makes an appearance in a flashback cutscene in Majora's Mask despite having no part in that game's story. She's also in all 3 CDI games, with 2 of them making her playable protagonist long before Nintendo's latest game in the Zelda series. She's in all 4 Hyrule Warriors games, all the NES Remix titles, and these games too. Like her alter ego Sheik, she's been in every Super Smash Bros. Game since Melee. 43 games for the Princess of Hyrule.
Dr. Mario!
For the good doctor here, we're looking at games where Mario is in his Dr. Mario persona, so I'm not counting Mario Kart Lives or Mario Odyssey's outfits, which are merely cosmetics for regular Mario. Dr. Mario has 9 games of his own, as I mentioned when covering Mario. He also appears in 4 games in the WarioWare series, 2 DS remix titles, and is a separate character from Mario in Mario Kart Tour. Appearing first in the Smash Bros. Series in Melee as a clone fighter of Mario, Dr. Mario was given reverse Ice Climber treatment. He was snubbed in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but returned for Smash for 3DS and Wii U, and Ultimate, giving him 4 games in the Smash series, 20 games in total.
Pichu!
Pikachu's pre-evolved form was introduced in Pokemon Generation 2, and is in every mainline game from that point on except for Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which only contain Generation 1 Pokemon. Pichu is in every 3D battle game except the first 2 Stadium games, which predate Generation 2. Like Pikachu, it's in every Mystery Dungeon -2, all the Ranger games, and the 3 other puzzle games. It appears in Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, every Rumble game except the first, which only included Pokemon from Generation 1 and 4, the first Pokepark game and new Pokemon Snap, only 2 of the Puck games, and cameos in both Pokken Tournament versions. Pichu was a fighter in Super Smash Bros. Melee and didn't see a return to the Smash series until Ultimate. Pichu also appears in all these Pokemon games, totaling to 75 game appearances for the baby Pokemon. Falco Lombardi appears in all the same games as Fox except for the first Super Smash Bros. Entry, 15 games. Our first Fire Emblem character is considered the face of his respective series of mostly self-contained games. Marth debuted in the very first Fire Emblem game, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, which spawned a sequel titled Mystery of the Emblem. Both games received remakes for the Nintendo DS. Marth returns to the series alongside many legacy characters in Fire Emblem Awakening as a DLC character. His Smash Bros. Amiibo unlocks him as a unit in Fates, of which I am counting as 2 separate games since Fates had 2 different versions sold at retail, akin to the Pokemon game duos, both providing exclusive stories and game content. Regardless of which cartridge you own, you have access to the alternative route within the game you are playing by purchasing it as DLC, until the Nintendo eShop shut down for the 3DS. There is also a DLC only route, but I'm not counting expansions like this for this video as individual games. While official outlets generally view Fates as a singular entry in the Fire Emblem series, Birthright and Conquest as physical games are both unique experiences locked to their respective game cartridges when no other story paths are purchased, so it seems only fair to separate them. This may also be considered controversial, but I am counting Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia's ghostly apparitions of the legacy FE characters as appearances, unlocked using their amiibo including Marth. It's technically still them wielding their weapons and everything. Marth makes his most recent appearance as an emblem character in Fire Emblem Engage, alongside other major protagonists in the series' history. These emblems aren't the actual characters, but more like immortal ethereal versions of the original characters they represent, sharing all their abilities, voices, characteristics, equipment, memories, etc. They count, basically. Marth also appears in the multiversal crossover games Fire Emblem Heroes and Fire Emblem Warriors. His amiibo unlocks him in the game codenamed Steam. He appears as a guest character in Nintendo's mobile game Dragalia Lost, and Emblem Marth makes a cameo in a WarioWare Move It microgame. Marth has been in every Smash Bros. Game since Melee 2, 19 games for the Hero King.
Lucina!
Marth's Echo fighter Lucina is one of his descendants, debuting in Fire Emblem Awakening. Like Marth, her amiibo unlocks her in Fates and Shadows of Valentia, and she is the main emblem representative of Awakening in Engage. She's also in Heroes, Warriors, codenamed Steam, and she makes a playable guest appearance in the game Project X Zone 2. She makes her Smash Bros. Debut in 4 3DS and Wii U, Ultimate's preceding game, giving her 3 Smash game appearances, 12 games for the Princess from the Future.
Young Link!
This version of Link is specifically the young incarnation featured in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and their remakes. He also appears in the 3 Hyrule Warriors games and cameos in 3 WarioWare games in microgames based on Ocarina of Time. Poor young Link effectively got replaced by his cartoony counterpart in the Smash Bros. Games that followed his playable appearance in Melee, so he's only in 2 Smash games. 12 games in total.
Ganondorf!
Ganon, the King of Evil, is the primary antagonist of most games in the Legend of Zelda series, but his form varies by game. Ganondorf is the name given to the Gerudo tribe-born king, first name dropped in A Link to the Past, and making his proper debut in Ocarina of Time. In the previous games in the series, the main villain was named Ganon and was a boar-like monster with no resemblance to a human. Unlike Link and Zelda, there aren't multiple incarnations of Ganon, not counting the newer Switch games which may or may not be another incarnation. Ganon is what Ganondorf himself becomes by acquiring ultimate power, and the two are therefore one and the same. Whichever form he assumes depends on the story of the game and its place in the timeline. So, with this being the case, you might have expected me to count every game that features both versions of Link's arch-nemesis, right? Well, no. We're only looking at appearances made by the humanoid Ganondorf, the form that the Smash Bros. Series has always used and even acknowledges as a separate entity from Ganon. I cannot in good conscience say that Ganondorf appears in the first Zelda game, the CDI games, or Breath of the Wild, because that's not Ganondorf, it's Ganon. And we're only looking at Ganondorf's game appearances. I hate to do this to him, it was a tough call to make, and he will be hit hard by this. Ganondorf appears in 8 mainline Zelda games, he's playable in the 3 Hyrule Warriors games, and is also in these 2 games. He has been in every Smash game since Melee. 18 games for the Gerudo King of Thieves, but he still terrorizes Hyrule in many Zelda games in his more monstrous form. Mewtwo is a legendary Pokémon that debuted in Generation 1 and has appeared in every mainline installment except Legends Arceus. It appears in all the 3D battle games, every mystery dungeon game except one, Puzzle League and Ranger Guardian Signs, all Rumble games, the other 3 puzzle games, every puck game, the Pokken Tournament games, and both Detective Pikachu games. Mewtwo made its playable debut in Super Smash Bros. With Melee, but did not return for Brawl. Just when it seemed like it would miss out on another entry, Mewtwo was surprisingly announced as a DLC fighter for Smash for 3DS and Wii U, and then became part of the base roster once again in Ultimate. Mewtwo also shows up in these games, 87 games for the genetic Pokémon. Roy is the main protagonist of Japan-exclusive Fire Emblem The Binding Blade, which in fact was released after he appeared as a fighter in Super Smash Bros. Melee, making Melee his actual debut appearance. He makes a cameo in the prequel title to his starring game, The Blazing Blade, aka the first Fire Emblem released outside of Japan, and he returns in Awakening. Due to being a latecomer to the Smash Bros. Amiibo party, Roy's amiibo only unlocks him in Echo Shadows of Valentia. He also appears in Heroes and Engage. Just like Mewtwo, Roy was added to Smash for 3DS and Wii U as a DLC character, after missing out on Brawl, and rejoining the base roster in Ultimate. 10 games in total for the worst lord in Fire Emblem. Chrom is Lucina's father, debuting alongside her in Fire Emblem Awakening as one of the lead characters. He appears in a DLC map in Fates, and once again as a DLC emblem in Engage. In addition to appearing in Heroes and Warriors, a Mirage version of Chrom appears in Tokyo Mirage Sessions #FE and its enhanced port. He might look different, but he shares Chrom's characteristics and has the same voice actor in Heroes, so I'm counting him like I would for an emblem. Chrom is also a guest character in Project X Zone 2 and Dragalia Lost, and cameos in WarioWare Gold. Chrom missing out on the playable roster of Smash for 3DS and Wii U was a meme following his role in the announcement trailer of Robin and Lucina, but he still shows up in those games in Robin's final Smash and one of their victory screens, before getting his long-awaited chance in Ultimate as Roy's Echo Fighter. 14 games in total.
Mr. Game & Watch!
I've taken an interesting approach to Mr. Game & Watch. In Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mr. Game & Watch now takes on the appearance of various Game & Watch characters when he executes moves based on their respective games. So except for his transformations into Stanley from Greenhouse and Spitball Sparky, who are established characters, I'm going to count these as his game appearances. Some may argue that I should only be counting the appearances of Mr. Game & Watch specifically, as he's technically an original character created for Smash Bros, but official outlets still claim him to be the same as the characters from those old Game & Watch games. Let's get to it regardless. Mr. Game & Watch shares the same character design as unnamed characters from Fire and Parachute, and changes into characters from 10 other Game & Watch games with some of his regular attacks, all his special moves, and final Smash. 12 Game & Watch games in total are represented here as appearances. Some of these Game & Watch icons also appear in 5 games in the WarioWare series. Mr. Game & Watch himself appears in Game & Watch Gallery 4, and he makes a cameo in the 2 versions of Donkey Kong Country Returns. A staple Smash fighter, Mr. Game & Watch has appeared in every Smash Bros. Entry since Melee, giving him 25 games in total. Kirby's masked frenemy is in every game in the Kirby series except for these 14 and Drum Dash Deluxe. Debuting in Kirby's Adventure allowed him to appear in 3 of the NES Challenge games too. The first new fighter announced for Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Meta Knight has been in every Smash Bros. Game since. 32 games for the enigmatic Knight. Pit is the main protagonist of the Kid Icarus series, which is comprised of 4 games, including the 3DS port of the NES original. He appears in 4 games in the WarioWare series, 3 of the NES Challenge games, and makes cameos in Tetris on NES and F1 Race. Pit has been in every Smash Bros. Game since Brawl brought him back into the limelight, giving him 17 games in total. Pit's broody clone has only appeared in Kid Icarus Uprising and 3 Smash Bros. Titles as Pit's Echo Fighter, 4 games.
Zero Suit Samus.
For Zero Suit Samus, we're only looking at games where Samus appears in this skin-type blue outfit, so previous unsuited versions are not counted. The Zero Suit debuts in the remake of the original Metroid Zero Mission, when Samus loses her power suit. She is shown wearing it again in 6 subsequent games in the Metroid series, along with being a playable separate character from regular power-suited Samus in the Smash Bros. Series since Brawl. 11 games in total.
Wario!
Mario's rival debuted in Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins as the main antagonist. Following this game, the Super Mario Land series was transformed into Wario's own starring Wario Land series, comprised of 6 games. He has only appeared in 2 other mainline Super Mario games since. Wario appears in 3 of the Game & Watch Gallery titles, 2 Dr. Mario games, 2 Picross games, and Yoshi's Island DS and NES Remix 2. As you will have already gathered from me bringing it up multiple times throughout this video, Wario stars in every game in his flagship series, WarioWare. A prevalent character in spin-offs, Wario appears in every Mario Kart game except 2 and every Mario Party entry -1. Wario has appeared in all these crossover games and every single Mario Sports title too. Except the Mario Tennis Power Tour for some reason. Wario made his Smash Bros. Debut in Brawl and has been a mainstay since. In addition to also appearing in these Mario-themed titles, Wario has a few of his own starring titles, and he has 3 cameo appearances in other games. This makes for 108 games for the garlic-loving WarioWare CEO. By the way, in case you were curious, Waluigi is in 63 games, which is funny enough the same number of games as Daisy, but he's still not going on this list. But hey, at least he got into Mario Tennis Power Tour, right?
Snake.
Time to look at Solid Snake, not to be confused with the other Snakes in the Metal Gear series that are different characters entirely, namely Big Boss, the first to use the Snake code name chronologically. I'm also counting Solid Snake's non-canon Metal Gear appearances from different continuities here, just so you know. Snake appears in 9 canon games and 8 titles in a non-canon capacity in the Metal Gear series, and he makes appearances in these unrelated games. Snake was the first third-party character announced in the entire Super Smash Bros. Series, being a standout playable character in Brawl, but not returning for 3DS and Wii U. His reveal for Smash Ultimate in the Everyone Is Here trailer was nothing short of amazing. 27 games for the legendary mercenary. Ike is the main protagonist of Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, and one of the lead protagonists in its sequel game, Radiant Dawn. Wait, what? Ike is the main protagonist of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, and one of the lead protagonists in its sequel game, Radiant Dawn, in addition to appearing in 5 other mainline games, as well as Heroes and Codename Steam. Ike has been a mainstay in the Smash Bros. Series since Brawl, 13 games for the Radiant Hero.
Pokémon Trainer.
Yes, we're doing both Pokemon Trainers Red and Leaf separately from their Pokemon allies, which we will get to afterwards. Red, as his canon default name, was the original player character from the Generation 1 games and their remakes, and his iconic status has given him recurring appearances throughout the series. He makes appearances as an NPC in 14 subsequent mainline Pokemon entries, is in 3 of the 3D battle games, and joins various other human Pokemon characters in Pokemon Masters EX. He first appears in the Smash Bros. Series in Brawl, known only as the Pokemon Trainer, who commands 3 Pokemon in battle. His Charizard returns on its own as an independent fighter for Smash for 3DS and Wii U, with Red nowhere to be seen until Ultimate. 28 games for the famous Pokemon Trainer.
Pokémon Trainer.
Leaf, her canon name, is Red's female player counterpart, introduced in the first remakes of the Generation 1 games. Red was the only player character in the originals. She also appears alongside Red in these 4 games. She was absent in Brawl, only being added to Smash Bros. Ultimate as an alternate skin for Red. 7 games in total.
Squirtle!
The first of the 3 Generation 1 Pokémon belonging to the Pokémon trainers in Super Smash Bros. An iconic starter Pokémon, Squirtle has appeared in every mainline Pokémon game except Legends Arceus. It's in all the 3D battle games, Pokémon Puzzle League, both Snap games, 8 Mystery Dungeon titles, 2 Ranger games, all Rumble games, the other 3 puzzle games, both Pokepark games, and all the Pup games. Squirtle appears in Smash Bros. Brawl but did not return until Ultimate with its trainer, and it's in all these side games too. 88 games for the first Water-type starter Pokémon.
Ivysaur!
The middle stage evolved form of the more popular Pokémon Bulbasaur. Ivysaur is regardless in every mainline game except Legends Arceus. It appears in every Mystery Dungeon title bar 1, 2 Ranger games, all 5 Puck games, and the first Detective Pikachu game. Like all Generation 1 Pokémon, it's in every 3D battle title, Rumble game, and Trozean Shuffle. And just like Squirtle, it's only playable in Smash Bros. Brawl before returning for Ultimate. It appears in these spin-off games too. 79 games for the evolved Grass-type starter Pokémon.
Charizard!
Charizard is one of the most popular Pokémon of all time, appearing in every mainline game except, you guessed it, Legends Arceus. It appears in all the 3D battle games, both Snap games, 8 Mystery Dungeon titles, all 3 Ranger games, these 3 puzzle games, all Rumble games, the 2 Pokepark games, all Pup games, both versions of Pokken Tournament, and the first Detective Pikachu game. Charizard was a summonable Pokémon from the Pokeball item in the first 2 Super Smash Bros. Games, before finally being made playable in Brawl with the Pokémon Trainer. As mentioned previously, it returned without Squirtle and Ivysaur in Smash for 3DS and Wii U, before being shackled with them again in Ultimate. It therefore appears in every Smash Bros. Game along with these Pokémon titles. 94 games for Charmander's final evolved form.
Diddy Kong!
Diddy Kong debuted in Donkey Kong Country and appears in all the same Donkey Kong series games as DK himself from that point on, except for both versions of Jungle Beat, and also being absent from the 3rd Donkey Kong Land game. Diddy starred in his own kart racer, Diddy Kong Racing, without DK, which later received a DS remake. He cameos in 2 WarioWare games and shows up in Dr. Mario World. I wouldn't want him as my doctor. Just like his partner, Diddy has appeared in many Mario spin-off titles. He's in 6 Mario Kart games, 4 Mario Party games, 3 tennis games and 2 golf entries, both baseball titles and 2 Strikers games, Fortune Street and 3 Mario and Sonic games, and these 3 miscellaneous sports games. He's been in every Smash Bros. Game as a fighter since Brawl, cameos in that Yokuman game along with everyone else, and he appears in an unplayable form in the 2 Skylanders games along with DK. 58 games for the ever-dependable Sidekick.
Lucas!
Lucas is the main protagonist of still Japan-exclusive Mother 3, the follow-up to Earthbound aka Mother 2 in Japan, and is in 4 Smash Bros. Games thanks to being added as a DLC fire in Smash for 3DS and Wii U, following his first appearance as a fighter in Brawl. Only 5 games. Sega's mascot Sonic the Hedgehog is a video game icon with a wildly successful series of games spanning over 3 decades. Sonic himself has 2 different looks which Sega and the fanbase refer to as Classic Sonic, the original design used for the first few games in the series in the 90s, as well as some newer titles, and Modern Sonic, the design that has been used for the Super Sonic Hedgehog since Sonic Adventure. Both the younger classic and older modern versions of the character are differentiated with their own series of games. The mainline classic Sonic series is comprised of 19 games, including the enhanced remasters and ports. The 90s also had 8 spin-off titles and 11 8-bit games on the Sega Master System and Game Gear. The mainline modern Sonic game series currently consists of 17 games with 9 additional games on handheld gaming systems. Modern Sonic spin-off titles include these 8 games, and a collection of racing games that includes 3 Sonic Riders games, 2 Sonic Rivals titles, and 3 racing car-based entries. Sonic Boom, an alternate continuity, has 3 games. Sonic appears in 2 crossover games with other Sega characters, and of course he joins his former rival Mario in all the Mario and Sonic games. Sonic has a long history with mobile games too. There's a lot of them. He stars in 27 games created for the Sonic Cafe and Sega mobile services, 5 games for the Puyo Puyo Sega mobile service, has 12 more recent mobile titles, and he's in these miscellaneous mobile games, as well as Roblox's Sonic Speed Simulator. History was made when Sonic was added to Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and he's been in every Super Smash Bros. Game since. Finally, as one of the most famous video game characters of all time, and one Sega is happy to throw around everywhere for collaborations and cameos, Sonic appears in all these games. The blue blur has a total of 193 appearances, the exact same number as Luigi. Now that is quite something.
Oh, bad news!
What? Sonic Rumble.
It's delayed.
Oh no! Anyway.
So it turns out that Sonic Rumble, which I counted earlier, has been delayed to 2025, and as it's no longer a 2024 release, I have to reduct one game off of Sonic. This will be reflected in the finished tier list at the end of the video. Okay, now back to the show.
King DDD.
Kirby's other frenemy appears in every game in the Kirby series except these four, and has his own starring game without any appearances from Kirby or Meta Knight, as stated previously. He appears alongside Kirby in the 2 Taiko no Drum games or whatever, and in 2 of the NES remix games. King DDD makes a cameo on the Dreamland stage in both the first Super Smash Bros. And Melee, before being made a playable character in Brawl, which he has remained since, meaning he's in every Smash Bros. Game but playable in 4 of them. 45 games for the self-proclaimed King of Dreamland.
Olimar.
Olimar is the main protagonist of the Pikmin series, appearing in 8 titles. The Nintendo Switch HD remasters are pretty much the exact same games as the Wii versions, so I'm not counting those. He cameos in WarioWare Move It and has been in every Super Smash Bros. Game since Brawl. 13 games for the stranded captain. Ow, or however you pronounce his name, appears in both versions of Pikmin 3. He was made into an alternate skin for Olimar starting in Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, carrying over into Ultimate. 5 games. Lucario is a highly popular Pokemon that was introduced in Generation 4 of Pokemon and has appeared in every subsequent mainline Pokemon game except the Let's Go games. It appears in Pokemon Battle Revolution, 8 of the Mystery Dungeon games, 2 Ranger games, Battle Troze and Shuffle, all Rumble titles, both Poké Park games, all Puck games, and both Pokken Tournament games. Along with being in every Super Smash Bros. Game since Brawl, it appears in these Pokemon side games as well. 61 games for the Aura Pokemon. For R.O.B's game appearances, I felt it was necessary to break one of my rules. For those that don't know, R.O.B, the robotic operating buddy, was introduced to the world as an NES/Famicom peripheral that was used to play a couple of packaged games named Gyromite and Stack Up. However, R.O.B itself did not appear in these games, and it is only game appearances that we're looking at today, so I can't count them unfortunately. Despite these 2 games and the R.O.B peripheral not exactly winning any awards, R.O.B's contributions to Nintendo's initial success with the NES/Famicom have made him a historical icon of the gaming giant. As such, R.O.B has made multiple cameo appearances in Nintendo games, sometimes as an actual robot character and other times as the original toy robot model. Since R.O.B was in fact the latter in real life, it only seems fair to count these toy appearances for him as well, despite the fact I'm not counting these type of cameo appearances for all the other characters in this ranking. Let's just make an exception for R.O.B and give him his due. R.O.B makes cameo appearances in Kirby's Dream Land 3, both versions of Super Mario RPG, both versions of Pikmin 2, and Majora's Mask 3D. I'm not counting versions such as these, which are merely based on R.O.B's design and are not the toy or character himself. He also appears in 6 WarioWare titles, and most notably is a playable character in Mario Kart DS. R.O.B was reinvented in Super Smash Bros. Brawl when he became a playable fighter, depicted as a combat-ready machine, and was even given a major role in Brawl's story mode, the Subspace Emissary. R.O.B has been a Smash fighter since that game, giving the plucky little toy/deadly killer robot 17 game appearances.
Toon Link.
For Toon Link, we're looking at all the incarnations of Link that use this cartoony design that debuted in The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords and, more prominently, The Wind Waker. Along with those 2 games, the Toon Link design appears in 7 other games in The Legend of Zelda series, 3 WarioWare titles, the Hyrule Warriors collection, and has been in every Smash Bros. Game since Brawl. 19 games for the legendary cat-eyed hero.
Whoa.
Fox's rival Wolf O'Donnell appears in 6 out of 8 games in the Star Fox series, and the Switch version of Starlink Battle for Atlas in the Star Fox collaboration. He makes a cameo in the opening of Super Smash Bros. Melee too. Wolf did not return for 3DS and Wii U following his playable debut in Brawl, giving him a total of 10 game appearances altogether with Smash Ultimate.
Villager.
Each villager skin in Super Smash Bros. Represents different games in the Animal Crossing series, so we're carrying every game that has any Animal Crossing villager character in it. The villagers are the player characters across the entire Animal Crossing series, comprised of 11 games, which includes the Japanese exclusive games that started the series. They also appear in 3 WarioWare titles and both versions of Mario Kart 8 as 2 additional guest characters. Villagers appeared in the background of the Smashville stage in Super Smash Bros. Brawl before being announced as the first newcomer for Smash for 3DS and Wii U, giving them 4 appearances in this series. 20 games overall for the unsettling axe wielders.
Mega Man!
The Mega Man franchise, known as Rockman in Japan, once won an award for having the most games in any long-running video game series in history, although this was back when the series was still going strong. For this video, however, we are of course only looking at the original Mega Man and his game appearances, and not those of his future or alternate continuity counterparts who are all completely different characters. Mega Man stars in 14 platforming games, which include spin-off Mega Man and Bass and 2 remake games. There were 2 officially licensed original games released for PC and 6 handheld titles as well. Classic Mega Man has 11 spin-off titles, makes appearances in these games from the other Mega Man sub-series, appears in 3 Marvel vs. Capcom games, and has 13 mobile games featuring him. Mega Man is the first character on this list to make his Smash Bros. Debut with full 3DS and Wii U, before of course returning in Ultimate. Lastly, Mega Man appears in some form in all these games, giving the Blue Bomber a total of 70 games.
Wii Fit Trainer!
Wii Fit Trainer is in all 3 Wii Fit games and the last 3 Smash Bros. Games. 6 games. Next.
Rosalina and Luma!
I'm not counting the Lumas, by the way. As the most recently introduced Super Mario series character in this ranking, Rosalina's game history isn't as extensive as the rest of the Mario cast. Rosalina debuted in Super Mario Galaxy, and she appears in 3 other games in the mainline Mario series. The rest of her appearances are of the spin-off variety. 6 Mario Kart games, 7 Mario Parties, 2 tennis games, 2 golf games, 3 Mario and Sonic entries, and these 5 Mario games. She didn't appear in any Smash Bros. Game prior to full 3DS and Wii U and Ultimate. 32 games for the Cosmic Princess.
Little Mac!
Little Mac is the main protagonist of the Punch-Out series, debuting in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on NES, later re-released as just Punch-Out. They're both the exact same games, with the only difference being real-life boxer Mike Tyson's presence as an opponent in the original release, so we're counting this as one game. Mac returns in 2 sequels and cameos in 3 games in the WarioWare series, 2 NES remix titles, and these 2 games. Little Mac was an assist trophy character in Super Smash Bros. Brawl before being made playable in the subsequent games. 14 games for the underdog boxer.
Greninja!
A Pokémon introduced in Pokémon Generation 6, Greninja is only in 10 mainline Pokémon games. It also appears in 1 Mystery Dungeon game, 2 Rumble titles, Battle Rose and Shuffle, 4 out of 5 Puck games, and is playable in the last 3 Super Smash Bros. Games. It also appears in these side games, given the Ninja Frog 28 games.
B-Roller! Me Sword Fighter! Me Gunner!
The Mii, Sword Fighter, Brawler, and Gunner are Super Smash Bros. Original characters. No, I'm not counting every game Miis have been in, and I don't need to, because these 3 fighters that can have the faces of anyone you choose are Smash Bros. Only characters, and Miis are just universal avatars that don't really count as individual characters. These specific Mii characters use the Smash Bros. Logo as their series logo, and their victory themes are based on the respective main themes of the games they've starred in, the 3 Super Smash Bros. Games, and nothing else. Next. Palutena is in every Kid Icarus game and 2 NES remix titles. Along with Pit, she appeared in Super Smash Bros. Brawl with a new modern design, but she only shows up in 1 cutscene in the Subspace Emissary and as an image in Pit's final Smash. She made her playable debut in full 3DS and Wii U, followed by Ultimate. 10 games for the Goddess of Light.
Pac-Man!
Pac-Man is a character I was dreading to cover, I won't lie. Being one of the oldest and most iconic video game characters in Super Smash Bros., Pac-Man's game history spans decades, and his world-famous debut game has a ton of different versions and ports. Fundamentally, most versions of the original Pac-Man are the same game, but there are some notable exceptions. From what I have gathered, there are 11 other versions of the first Pac-Man game that are different enough from each other to class as separate games. Pac-Man appears in 6 sequels to the original game, including a remake of one of them. He also stars in 3 differing versions of Pac-Land, 4 versions of Pac-Attack, 2 games with the Pac-Man arrangement name, 7 games in the Pac-Man World Series, 3 Ghostly Adventures TV show tie-in games, and 20 other games relating to the Pac-Man series. Pac-Man crossed over with Mario for the first time in the first 3 Mario Kart Arcade GP games, and he also takes the wheel in 6 games in the Ridge Racer series. It should come as no surprise that Pac-Man has featured in 38 mobile games thanks to the legacy of his very first game and his very basic design for his original sprite. In addition to the 3 Super Smash Bros. Games he features in, Pac-Man has made appearances in all these games too, giving him 126 appearances. The last character in this ranking who debuted in Fire Emblem Awakening and also one of its lead characters. Robin is a customizable avatar character that has a default canon male and female design that is used in their subsequent game appearances. They are both generally considered to be the exact same character, with gender being the only main difference between the two, so they are being counted as one for this list. Only the male variant got a Smash Bros. Amiibo, so he enjoys appearances in the 3 Fire Emblem games following Awakening, as well as codename Steam. He also appears alongside his best friend Chrom in Engage's DLC. Both variants of Robin are in Fire Emblem Heroes and Warriors, as well as the last 3 Smash Bros. Games. 10 games for the Master Tactician. Shulk is the main protagonist of Xenoblade Chronicles, originally released for Nintendo Wii, ported to Nintendo 3DS, and remade for Nintendo Switch with new content. He returns in the DLC packages of both sequels, and has been playable in the last 3 Smash Bros. Titles. 8 games for Monado Boy.
Bowser Jr.
Bowser's son debuted in Super Mario Sunshine and has been portrayed as a secondary antagonist of the Super Mario series since, appearing in 12 more mainline games. As with most major Mario characters, he does the rounds in a lot of spin-off titles. In the RPG series, he appears in 2 Paper Mario titles and 5 Mario and Luigi entries. For racing, sports and parties, Bowser Jr. appears in 8 Mario Kart games, 9 Mario parties, 4 bouts of tennis, 3 golf games, both baseball games, 2 Mario Strikers titles, Fortune Street, 3 other sports games, and every Mario and Sonic Olympics game -2. He also appears in Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle and Dr. Mario World. Is there no limit to who can become a doctor in this universe? In addition to his 3 Smash Bros. Appearances, Junior also appears in these 2 games. 67 appearances for the young Prince of the Koopas. Let's cover the 7 Koopalings as well, why not? All 7 of these elite followers of Bowser appear together in 11 of the mainline Super Mario games, 4 Mario Kart games, 4 Mario and Luigi games, and as Bowser Jr.'s alternate skins in the last 3 Smash Bros. Games. They also all appear in these games.
Morton.
That's 29 games for Morton Koopa Jr., because unlike his siblings, he doesn't have any additional appearances. Larry Koopa has the most games of the group, appearing in 5 other games. 34 games in total. Roy Koopa has 3 other games, giving him 32. Wendy O. Koopa has 4 games, so 33. Iggy Koopa is in 3 of the acclaimed Mario Discovery games and makes a cameo in Super Mario Sunshine. Yeah, I'd say this memory of Mario's counts. 33 games. Lemmy Koopa only makes 1 additional appearance in Super Scope 6 with Mario, 30 games. Finally, Ludwig von Koopa is also in 4 other games, 33 games.
Duck Hunt Duo!
Yes, they're called that over here in Europe. We're counting any appearances that Duck Hunt's infamous dog and cannon fodder ducks make between them. They both debut in light gun shooter Duck Hunt. Duck Hunt's characters are also represented in 5 WarioWare games and Tetris DS. The dog appears on his own in Barker Bill's Trick Shooting, and the ducks appear by themselves in Wii Play. This fighting duo are playable in the most recent Smash Bros. Games. 13 games for this unlikely pair. The other character after Pac-Man that I wasn't looking forward to, Ryu, is the main protagonist of the Street Fighter series. A series, as you may be aware, is notorious for constantly getting new and updated versions of its existing games, to the point of even its development studio Capcom parodying itself, and we are of course going to count all the notable ones. The first Street Fighter game only has 1 version and is Ryu's debut game. Its famous sequel, the genre-defining Street Fighter II, was the one to properly kickstart Capcom's flagship fighting game series. There are 10 other distinct versions of this game, and it's safe to say you can likely expect more in the future. Capcom continued with 7 Street Fighter Alpha games, 3 Street Fighter 3 titles, 5 Street Fighter EX games, 7 different versions of Street Fighter 4, 3 Street Fighter 5 entries, and 1 Street Fighter 6 game, for now. He also appears in 6 other games in the Street Fighter series. As Street Fighter's poster boy, Ryu consistently appears in crossover titles involving Street Fighter and Capcom characters. He's in all 7 crossover games with Marvel Comics characters, Namco x Capcom, all 5 vs SNK titles, both versions of Tatsunoko vs Capcom, Street Fighter x Tekken, the 2 Project X Zone games, and was added to Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U as the first DLC newcomer character. All DLC characters from Smash 4 returned in Ultimate as part of the base roster for those not in the know. Ryu also appears in all these games, giving the Wandering Martial Artist 81 games. Ken Masters appears in every major Street Fighter game alongside his friendly rival Ryu and 5 of the side games. Ken doesn't always make the cut in the crossover games, but he appears in 3 of the Marvel Comics crossover games, Namco x Capcom, all vs SNK games, Street Fighter x Tekken, and both Project X games. He was added as a playable fighter to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as Ryu's Echo Fighter, even sharing a character reveal trailer with Incineroar. Ken is also in these 6 games. I suppose I'll have to count the best left forgotten Street Fighter 2010 too, in which the English localization made the protagonist of that game into Ken himself. 63 games for Ryu's clone fighter. Cloud Strife is the main protagonist of the revolutionary Final Fantasy VII, which today has an ongoing series of games that are reimaginings of the PlayStation 1 original, currently consisting of 3 titles. Final Fantasy VII's overwhelming success led to a sub-series of games and other media set in its universe, the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, in which Cloud appears in 5 of its game entries. Cloud appears in a variety of crossover games with other Final Fantasy, Square Enix, and even Disney characters. He appears in 8 games in the Kingdom Hearts series, 4 Dissidia entries, 4 Theatrhythm titles, 4 Itadaki Street games, and 9 mobile games. Along with the last 3 Smash Bros. Titles, Cloud further appears in these Final Fantasy games, and guest stars in these games, giving the most justified identity thief 54 games. Another customizable avatar character with 2 different default canon variants, like Robin. Corrin is the main protagonist of the Fire Emblem Fates games. Unlike Robin, both variants received a Smash Bros. Amiibo. The only game they appear in with the scanned amiibo is Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. Both variants are also in Fire Emblem Heroes and Warriors, and the female variant appears as an emblem in Fire Emblem Engage and the WarioWare Move It microgame. Corrin was added as DLC to Smash for 3DS and Wii U to promote Fire Emblem Fates, which had yet to come out in the West at the time, along with Ultimate, 10 games altogether for the Child of Dragons. Bayonetta is the main protagonist of the series of the same name, currently comprised of 4 games. She also appears in Anarchy Reigns, The Wonderful 101 and its remaster, and 8-bit Bayonetta, in an official ballot that let fans vote for the final DLC character of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. Bayonetta won, earning her place in the Smash series. Throwing it out there now, I was one of those people who voted for her as a fan of the character and her series. 11 games for the Umbra Witch. Splatoon's very own Inklings are the main customizable player characters in the 3 games in that series, and male and female variants appear in Mario Kart 8 as playable guest characters. We've entered the home stretch now, with Inkling being the first newcomer announced for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. 5 games for the Squid Kids. Ridley is a highly persistent antagonist of the Metroid series, refusing to stay dead and always making a comeback. Samus did eventually kill him off for good in Super Metroid, which led to scientists in Other M inadvertently creating a clone of him. The question is, do I count this clone as the same character as the original? Well, being a clone, he shares the same name, attacks, and appearance of the original, and I'm already counting alternative versions of characters, so I personally don't see the harm. Ridley is in 10 of the 15 Metroid games, and his incarnation from the first Metroid game appears in 2 NES Remix titles and the World Championships game. Clone Ridley cameos with Samus in Dead or Alive Dimensions. Ridley has a storied history in the Super Smash Bros. Series. He makes a cameo in the background of the planet Zebes stage in the first Smash Bros. Game, makes a minor appearance in Melee's opening cinematic fighting Samus. He appears in his regular and Meta Ridley forms as two different bosses in Brawl's Subspace Emissary. Foam Ridley is a stage hazard on the Pyrosphere stage in Smash for Wii U, and after years of demand from fans, he was finally made playable in Ultimate, at the cost of having to be shrunk down. 19 games for Samus's arch nemesis. Simon Belmont is the original protagonist of the Castlevania series, starring in the first Castlevania game and its 3 other versions. He returns in Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest and Super Castlevania 4. Simon also appears in these Castlevania titles, crossing over with other vampire killers. A reimagined version of the character appears in Lords of Shadow Mirror of Fate 2. In addition to his inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, he also appears in these games as a guest star, totaling to 23 games for the Vampire Hunter. Richter Belmont, another Castlevania hero and Simon's Echo Fighter, stars in Castlevania Rondo of Blood and its 2 remakes. He appears in 6 other Castlevania titles, these 4 games, and Smash Bros. Ultimate, giving him 14 appearances.
King K. Rool!
The main antagonist of Donkey Kong, who was introduced in the first Donkey Kong Country, King K. Rool is in all the original Donkey Kong Country games and their handheld versions, these 5 Donkey Kong games, Mario's Super Sluggers of all Mario spin-offs, and of course Super Smash Bros. Ultimate after years of fan requests. 17 games for the Kremlin King.
Isabelle!
Isabelle is an Animal Crossing character debuting in New Leaf and appearing in 4 subsequent Animal Crossing games, and she also makes a playable guest appearance alongside the human villagers in both versions of Mario Kart 8. Isabelle was an assist trophy character in Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U before becoming a fighter in Ultimate. 10 games for the Shih Tzu Secretary. Incineroar is a Pokemon that debuted in Generation 7, appearing in 8 mainline Pokemon titles overall. It appears in these Pokemon spin-off games and is the last newcomer for Smash Bros. Ultimate that isn't a DLC fighter. 15 games for the wrestling Pokemon.
Piranha Plant!
Piranha Plant may have always seemed like a baffling choice for a Smash Bros. Character, but here I will show you that the choice was indeed valid. We are of course only looking at appearances made by the standard Piranha Plants that all share this same design, and not any other similar but completely different enemy subspecies and characters. Piranha Plants are one of the Super Mario series' most iconic and recurring enemies. They appear in every mainline game in the series except for Super Mario Bros. 2 and its 2 related games. Amusingly, they're in more mainline Mario games than Luigi and Bowser. Piranha Plants are also enemies to Mario's companion Yoshi, appearing in all the Yoshi games. Piranha Plants appear in the fan-favourite Mario's Early Years Preschool Fun, the 2 versions of Yoshi, 2 WarioWare titles, every Mario vs Donkey Kong game excluding 1, all the NES Challenge games, and Dr. Mario World. Yes, there's a Dr. Piranha Plant. There's truly no limit to who can become a doctor in the Mario universe if even a man-eating plant can be one. We have come full circle. They also appear in various forms in the other Mario spin-off series. Every Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi game, every Mario Kart title, all Mario Parties -2, 3 Mario Tennis games, 3 golf games, both baseball titles, the Itadaki Street crossovers and 4 Mario and Sonic games, and Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Piranha Plants appeared on the Mushroom Kingdom stage in the first Super Smash Bros., and we didn't see another physical appearance from them in Smash until Super Smash Bros. Ultimate brought that stage back and gave us the first DLC character for Ultimate, the Piranha Plant fighter itself. The vicious plants also appear in all these Mario side games and other non-Mario games, giving the classic Mario enemy a total of 140 appearances. You see, a completely justified inclusion to the Smash roster. It's been in more games than a lot of gaming's most famous icons. Joker is the main protagonist of both versions of Persona 5 and their various spin-off games, and appears in these games in the Persona series too. Like Sonic, he's been thrown around to collaborations in many games, comprised of these titles. He was added to Smash Bros. Ultimate as the first DLC character in Fighters Pass Volume 1. 26 games for the Phantom Thief. For Hero, we're counting all the different Dragon Quest characters that are represented through the skins in Smash. The default hero character in Smash Bros. Ultimate is known as the Luminary, and is the main protagonist for Dragon Quest XI and its 3 different versions. He also appears in mobile game Dragon Quest Tact, and as a guest character in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. 6 games including Ultimate. Dragon Quest III's hero is known as Erdrick. His game has 4 distinct versions and he cameos in the Dragon Quest XI games. Along with Theatre-Rhythm Dragon Quest and Dragon Quest Tact, he appears in all 4 games in the Dragon Quest Monster Battle Road series, 14 games including Ultimate. Dragon Quest IV's hero is named Solo and his game has 3 different versions. He appears in 4 other Dragon Quest titles and all the Monster Battle Road games, 12 games when you include Ultimate. Finally, 8 is the hero of Dragon Quest VIII, which received 1 remake. He's also in Theatre-Rhythm and all the Monster Battle Road games, 8 games when you include Ultimate. Heh.
Banjo and Kazooie!
While both Banjo and Kazooie always appear together, Banjo debuted without his feathered companion as a playable character in game developer Rare's Diddy Kong Racing. He did not return for the DS remake due to Microsoft's acquisition of Rare and their intellectual properties, which included him. Following the original Diddy Kong Racing, the bear and bird duo were introduced as the stars of their very own series, which is made up of 5 games. Banjo returned to racing as a playable guest character joined by Kazooie on his back this time, exclusively in the Xbox 360 version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, and he didn't see any more action until Smash Bros. Ultimate. 8 games for the unfortunate victims of the Rare buyout.
Terry!
SNK's poster boy Terry Bogard is in every mainline game in 2 different fighting game series. He debuted in Fatal Fury King of Fighters as a main protagonist, the first game in his own Fatal Fury series that is made up of 12 games, and he's in all 30 the King of Fighters games, along with 5 other King of Fighters titles. I've counted 16 different Fatal Fury and King of Fighters mobile games, and 13 other mobile games that he makes collaboration appearances in. The information surrounding a lot of his appearances in obscure Japanese games is quite unreliable online, so he may be in more, but these are all I could confirm. Terry fights with Street Fighter's Ryu for the first time in all the SNK vs Capcom games, and most recently has been added as a guest character to Street Fighter 6. In addition to his Smash Bros. Placement, Terry also makes crossover appearances in these titles, a whopping 88 games, surpassing Ryu.
Violet!
The most recent Fire Emblem character in this ranking, Byleth is a non-customizable avatar with 2 different variants, and the main protagonist of Fire Emblem Three Houses, and a major character in its spin-off Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes. Male Byleth is an emblem in Engage, showing up in the WarioWare microgame as well. Both variants are in heroes with every other Fire Emblem character in Smash, and Byleth was the last DLC fighter of Fighters Pass Volume 1 for Smash Ultimate. 6 games for the Ashen Demon.
Min Min!
The first DLC character of Fighters Pass Volume 2, Min Min is a playable character from Nintendo's Switch game ARMS, and along with Smash Ultimate, that's it. 2 games.
Steve! And Alex!
Steve and Alex are default character skins from the worldwide phenomenon Minecraft, which is one of the single most enduring games in gaming history. And along with Smash Ultimate, that's it. 2 games, but he arguably didn't need more.
Zombie!
For the last time, we are of course doing alternate character skins as well. Zombie is an enemy from Minecraft, and there are other Minecraft games aside from the main big one, in which zombies appear in 4 of them. 6 games including Ultimate.
Enderman!
Enderman is also an enemy from Minecraft and shows up in 2 other Minecraft games. 4 games including Ultimate.
Sephiroth!
As the main villain of Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth tends to follow his arch-nemesis Cloud wherever he goes. Sephiroth is in all the remake games, 5 games in the compilation of FF7 series, 5 Kingdom Hearts titles, 6 mobile Final Fantasy games, and every title in these spin-off series with Cloud. He also appears with Cloud in these games and Smash Bros. Ultimate, giving the One-Winged Angel 39 games.
Pyra! And Mythra!
Pyra and Mythra are 2 beings who share the same body, are among the main protagonists of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This game also received an expansion offering a unique and revamped gameplay experience that could be bought separately for a physical edition without having to own or play the main game beforehand. So we're counting it, as they both appear in it too. I'm not counting the infamous photo featuring Pyra and Mythra from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, as I'll remind you appearances like this don't count for this ranking. Along with Ultimate, 3 games for the Aegis Girls. Kazuya Mishima is one of the Tekken series' main characters. He appears in every mainline Tekken game and their updated versions, the 5 Tekken Tag Tournament games, and 6 spin-off games. Along with Smash Ultimate, he appears in various other gaming crossovers and collaborations, giving the disgraced son of the Mishima family 30 games.
Sora!
At last, we have reached the final fighter. The main protagonist of the Kingdom Hearts series, Sora is in 15 of its games and makes a guest appearance in World of Final Fantasy. He was added to Ultimate as the last DLC character the game received, 18 games. And there we have it, the complete ranking of every Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighters game appearances as of 2024. This video was very taxing to make, but I hope it was worth it in the end. The research, data collection and video editing required many man-hours of work, and I can see why no one has dared to broach this subject. Nonetheless, I hope this video has been enlightening and that you enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what games 2025 has in store for this roster of gaming legends. Hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 more new ones for characters that didn't rank as high as they should have. I plan to do more gaming related videos surrounding my favourite series of games, so I hope you'll check them out too when the time comes. See you next time.